I want to go through the timeline and prove that 2025, without a doubt, is the year of the rapture here. And we're going to focus on this timeline. I do a lot of jumping around typically. I went back and listened to a video where I just began realizing how the Shemitah and the Jubilee cycles actually worked. And it's from January 17th or 19th, something like that. And I was all over the place because this is what I do when I'm learning. I kind of pose ideas to see if anybody can give me some help.
That is a piece of foolishness.
So, unpopular opinion, but this is not going to age well. This timeline is built on a lot of bad information, and I figure I just kind of go through some of it real fast. I'm sure that there's a lot more, but I just wanted to hit on the points that I just noticed watching the video. So the first thing is he is using a 49-year Jubilee cycle versus the established 50-year Jubilee cycle. This is the first year I've ever seen people make this argument. I've never seen it before, but as I have mentioned prior, this is documented in the Talmud. About 1,800 years ago, they had this argument, and it was settled that the 51st year is the first year of the new Jubilee cycle. So it's 50 years, not 49 years, but they are using the 49 years because I guess it helps fit the whole 2025 narrative. Another thing that I saw in there was the 1406. Now, where have we seen 1406 before? Again, this is a bad number for the entry into the land, simply because the Talmud also documents 17 jubilees that were observed. So, if you just simply do the math between that and the Babylonian captivity, you come to somewhere around like 1470 something. It's not even close enough to 1406 for the 1406 to even remain a valid data point. So even if you don't exactly know when the Jubilee was, you can still kind of dial it in knowing that they were exiled and then just go back the 17 Jubilees times 50. It's even worse if you use a 49-year Jubilee cycle. Another thing is that he places Yeshua's birth on September 11th, 3 BC. I have seen this in a couple of places. I have a book with it in there, and I know that there's a document on Torah calendar, and they present this information. The problem is Herod died in 4 BC, so how can he give the order to kill the innocent babies in 3 BC if he's dead? So that's not a good number. And I'm not really sure why he chose that particular alignment. I know he was basing it loosely on the Revelation 12 sign, even though that's not the full alignment. But basically the sun is in Virgo and the moon is at our feet. Well, that happens every year around September. That's just the way astronomy works. So I'm not entirely sure why he chose that particular year as Yeshua's birth. But it just doesn't fit. And by the research that I've done, I've come to the conclusion that he was most likely born in early of 4 BC. I know some people will argue even fall of 5. Not the point for this video. It's just when you look at the data, it just doesn't work. Now, I know people like Lawson or Larson with the Bethlehem Star want to argue Herod's death was in 1 BC, but that's just so that he can make his theory fit. It's pretty well established that Herod died in 4 BC. So now moving on. And then we see that he's got 3.5 years for Yeshua's ministry. Again, not a thing. I know this is one of those things that you don't question. Like that's how long it was. But the thing is, I took the Gospels, put them side by side. I can't find 3.5 years in there. And I know people are going to say, well, what about John chapter 6? Well, if you go that route, you've got the Passover at the beginning of the ministry, Passover at the end of the ministry, and then you got the one in John chapter 6. Well, that gives you only 2 years, not 3.5. So it still doesn't work in your favor. Now, I know the arguments for pushing it out but this is something that popped up in the 3rd century. Prior to that, it wasn't believed that Yeshua's ministry was 3.5 years long. This started with Origen. And even if you go and you look at Irenaeus' book Against Heresies, by my count, he says that the prevailing belief in his time in 180 AD was that Yeshua's ministry was 1 year from baptism to crucifixion. You also don't have any other witnesses. We've got 3 other Gospels, and none of them point to a Passover in the middle of essentially his ministry. So, yeah, you're loosely basing this off of just one Gospel. which has a few other errors in it. So, and I know that hurts people's feelings to say that, because they're just like, oh my goodness, my Bible is infallible. And it's just like, the Gospels were, the authors are anonymous. We don't know who they are. They were written decades after the events took place. So yes, some things are probably going to get changed. Even if you take and say they were perfect when they came out, Origen complained about copyist errors and changing things based on bias. So we know, I mean, it's been 2,000 years. Don't think that people just kept it absolutely perfect. And that's why we have 4 Gospels, because then that gives us 4 witnesses, and then we can go through the lens of all 4 of them to see exactly what's taking place. So another thing that he's got on there is the crucifixion taking place in 30 AD. I know this is another popular don't question it kind of thing. Both 30 and 33 AD are typically assumed that that's when the crucifixion took place, and that is simply because of tradition. We have to have Good Friday, that way we can have Easter Sunday. And really that should be like the first thing that gets your attention, because what is Easter? What does the bare-breasted fertility sex goddess have anything to do with Yeshua? So the tradition is based, again, in John, where you have 6 days before the Passover for the triumphal entry. You go out 6 days, then you have Good Friday, and then you have Easter Sunday. Problem is, we were told the sign that we were going to get is the sign of Jonah, 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the earth. And so you do not get 3 days and 3 nights from Friday evening to Sunday morning. It just does not fit. So it's wrong. The other thing is, and I'm surprised people haven't even noticed this, because that's here Palm Sunday, but if you read it, it says 6 days before, and then you go down to, I think it's like verse 12, and it says, and then the next day, and it's like, then they bring out the palm branches, and that was the triumphal entry. So now that's 5 days before, so now it's Palm Monday. I mean, I just amazed that people look at tradition over what it actually states. So anyway, then you don't have witnesses in the other 3 Gospels that give you 6 days. Matthew and Mark, if you read through them, Mark I think is the most concise, where it says, and the next day, and the next day, and then 2 days. Matthew leaves off one of the next days, but the stories are so closely related that you can tell that they are showing that the triumphal entry happened 4 days before the Passover. And then the third witness that we would have for this is the law. 10th day you bring the lamb into your house, and on the 14th day you sacrifice it. So there's that. So we know that the crucifixion couldn't take place in 30 AD, which is the date that he has. So yeah, that's just glossing over just a few of the little problems that I saw when watching the video. I'm sure if I took time and really dug into it, I could probably find more errors. And this really kind of goes back to what Chuck Missler used to say. You know, if you torture the data long enough, it'll confess to anything. And so I guess all this data, as it is in this really complicated timeline that he's put together, because some of the stuff is just like, what's going on here? It's just to basically, I guess, placate the minds of the Rapture cult. Like, look at all this data. This is this perfect timeline that the Rapture is going to take place on or before September 24th of 2025. Oh, we're almost there, and then when that day comes and goes, I don't understand this would be an emotional drain for me. Like, my temperament, my mood is just even. I don't have the highs and the lows, and so I don't understand the desire for that. Actually, I don't like it. I like having, everything's just sort of even throughout everything. Like, if I'm going and if I'm excited about going somewhere, it's the mood is slightly up, but it's not a big deal. And and when I have my downs, it's not that big of a deal. But this roller coaster, this bipolar thing that people go through because somebody came on the internet and said, look at the data, I am confident that the rapture is going to take place this year. And then you got me, and I'm going to be like, yeah, probably not this year. And normally I would say that based on things that God has shown me personally that's going to take place in my life, but I will omit that for this video. I will just say his timeline is filled with a bunch of garbage data, and it is proof for absolutely nothing. And I'll probably get the comments, just like I did on my Messiah 2030 video. I know that guy, I don't think was a pre-trib subscriber. But I knew that the crowd would grab it and say, wait, if we just subtract 7 years from 2030 to 2023, and then I kept getting comments where people say, the rapture's going to take place this year, you're wrong. And then in 2024, that comment stopped. And it's really odd. It's not like the content changed. So I don't know. I guess some things are just meant to remain a mystery.